So what is it that we're having today? Today we're supposed to finish things off. We're having the necklace or necklace by Maupassant, and then we move on to Trifles by Susan Glaspell. Two different genres, right? One of them is short story. This is a remnant of the short story part. Okay, the necklace, I mean. And then we go to a totally different genre, which is drama. And in this case, we have Trifles. I remember very vividly that I asked you to read the two of them. And I am hopeful that you have done so. So let's start with the necklace. We've been talking about the necklace. We've been talking about it for perhaps 3 weeks now. And every time I ask people whether they have read it or not, I have a negative answer. I'm hopeful that you have done some reading. Have you read the necklace? Okay, type 4 if you have read the necklace. Type 4, please. Okay. Nice, nice. Very good, very good. Good, very good. Nice. Amazing. Okay. So almost all of us have read the necklace, which is good news. Okay, nice, very good. How about Trifles? Have you read Trifles by Susan Glaspell? Trifles, if you have read Trifles, I mean type perhaps 7. Type 7 if you have read Trifles. 777. Okay, nice, very good. Okay, good, nice. Okay, so let's start with the necklace. Okay, so how different or similar the necklace is to the body of short stories that we have covered so far. Remind me of the short stories that we have covered so far. Still remember them? What are the short stories? We had a gallery of short stories already, right? We started off with Mona Ragab's I Will Try by Tomorrow, right? That beautiful undiscovered voice by Salwa Bakr. Very good, Yasmin, thank you. What else? Remember Tayyip Saleh's short story. What was the name of the short story? Tayyip Saleh's. A Handful of Dates. Excellent, Yasmin. A Handful of Dates. Nice. And then we have a Nigerian writer or short story writer by the name of Chinua Achebe. So what was the name of the short stories that we had for Chinua Achebe? Remember? Yeah, Dead Man's Path. Yeah, Dead Man's Path, like Maha is saying. Nice. Okay. Any other short stories that I'm not aware of? No, actually, uh, with the necklace, that would be the short stories that we're supposed to cover in this course, right? Okay. So necklace. So typical, is it a typical short story? When I say typical, I mean it's I mean perhaps similar to the other short stories in terms of structure. I'm talking about that generic similarities that this short story may have with the other short stories. So how typical is the necklace? Does it conform to the rules and regulations of the short story that we have seen over the past 6 weeks? I'm asking you, by the way. Maha is saying, yeah, the number of characters, for example. Yes, you mean the number is limited. We have a limited number of characters. Okay, good. Yeah, what else? there is a conflict. Maha is saying that there is a conflict, which is typical. If you have a plot, you will have to have a conflict. Abdul Wahab is saying it's the best of all short stories, of all the short stories that we studied. Okay, and this is not a short story feature. We're talking about the features that would perhaps tie it to the genre of short stories. Yasmin is saying that it has a simple style of writing. Okay, again, we're talking about what makes it a short story. Okay, so in terms of characters, we have characters and they are limited in number. In terms of plot, we have a plot, and the plot would give way to give way to conflicts, right? And Yasmin said that we have conflicts. Haya is saying that we have setting, and that's good, which is a typical short story feature. Very good, nice. And of course, you'll have to have themes and ideas, right? Okay, so the setting and the characters and the plot, and even the narrative voice. Remember, we spoke about narrative voice, whether this is first person narrator or third person narrator, right? And the difference between them, right? So that narrative voice, along with the setting, the characters, and the plot, all contribute towards delivering the theme that the writer may have in mind, right? No, this is not what I meant, yeah, Mishal. I'm talking about the elements or the features that make it a short story, and we spoke about them. Okay, so when we talk about the style, for example, as part of these features, we would talk about perhaps symbols, like Reem is saying. Yes, but yeah, Maha is saying that the narrative voice is also in novels, right? So you have narrative voice in both short stories and novels, and then you add the other features of the short story, and that would make what would make the short story different from a novel. Yeah, Maha. Yes, limited number of characters, like Maisa is saying. Okay, good. So let's kind of break the short story down to its basic components. Okay, so let's start with the setting. So where are we and when? Remember, setting, spoke about settings of any short story, the time aspect and the place aspect. So in terms of place, where are we? We are in Paris in the 19th century. Okay. Okay. So okay, you can also, when you talk about the setting, you may talk about the perhaps the class that the characters belong to. For example, is it middle class? Higher class, or lower middle class, or so what do you think? Middle class? I wouldn't call even call them middle class. They are a little bit lower middle class, right? No, they are not lower class. Remember, Yasmin, that she used to have a maid servant, somebody who helps her around. You cannot be lower class and you have somebody around the house helping you, right? She's a little bit lower middle class, right? Or middle class, let me put it this. Her husband works in the government. He is perhaps a clerk over there. Yes. Okay. Okay. So this is in terms of place and status. Okay. So this is place and status. We said that they are middle class. In terms of time, we said that this is Paris. I'm not sure that the word Paris was mentioned. Perhaps, landmarks in Paris that would indicate that this is Paris, right? Okay. in the 19th century. Okay. Do you think this kind of background and knowing about this background would help us understand? Do you think that knowing about these pieces of information, did it help you understand? Did you get this information from outside the short story or from within the short story? Did you get the information from within the short story or from outside? I'm asking you. From within. That's interesting. Good. Like we always said, we don't want to spoil what we read. We don't want to spoil the text that we're reading, whether it's a play or a novel or a short story or even a poem, by reading about it first. You start with reading it first and then you go and read about it. Make no mistake about it. Don't read about something unless and until you have read it itself. If you're doing a poem, so you'll have to read the poem first, okay, and then you go and read about the poem, secondary sources. Okay, so Maisa is saying that knowing about the setting can help her imagine what kind of style the society had at the time. Okay, that's real and that's true. Okay. Maha is giving an example. She said, for example, the price of the necklace is in French franc, so we can take it as a hint. That's interesting, Maha. That's a good observation. Thank you for it. Okay. So it's all these small details that can help you kind of visualize what is happening. Okay, good. Right. Let's go to the characters. So do you still remember the characters? Limited as they are. Remember, this is a short story, and typical of short stories, we don't expect so many characters, right? Reem is saying that we have three characters. Okay. So I don't know whether you agree with Reem or not. Is it three that we're having, three or four? Okay. So can we name them? Do you still remember their names? Okay. So who are they? Monsieur Loisel, yes. And obviously his wife, right? Still remember her name? Does she have a name? Matilda. It's very important that whenever you have a character that does not have a name, it means that we have a problem. Okay, well, actually, it's not a problem. It depends on the context, of course. But sometimes not giving a character a name would mean that you're perhaps dehumanizing him or her. You're thinking very little of him or her, and sometimes it's the other way around. You don't give a character a name because you're trying to universalize the experience. You're trying to say that this character is identifiable by everybody, that this character is relatable. Okay, so it can work both ways, right? So like Mona is saying, we have Madame Loisel and her husband, and obviously Loisel is her husband's name, or her husband's family name. Allah Akbar. But she herself has a name, Matilda, right? Okay, good. And she has a friend, a female friend, and somebody gave us her name, Madame Jean or Jeanne Foresti. Okay, okay, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, good. Okay, so what can you make of these characters? I mean, remember those famous categorizations of the characters into flat and round characters, into dynamic and static? So how do we judge whether a character is dynamic or static? Based on this character's capacity for change, whether he or she is showing any signs of change. Okay, so what do you think of Matilda? What do you think of her character? Obviously, Matilda happens to be the protagonist, the main character, right? We're agreed on that, right? Okay, nice. So, what do you think of her? If you, what is the biggest impression that you got out of reading? I mean, reading the short story and reading the character of Matilda. Reem is saying she is a beautiful woman who is unsatisfied by or with her marriage. She dreams of being rich. Okay. Okay. Allah is saying she's having conflicts between her dreams and her real. That's a very interesting way of putting it. Yeah, Allah. Thank you so much. Okay. Any more thoughts and insights into the character of Matilda? Is she relatable? Can you identify with her? Have you seen yourself in her? I'm talking to the woman folks in class, of course. She does what she doesn't want her husband. I'm not sure that she said that. Yasmin is saying no, she has a toxic mindset. Can you explain that yet, Yasmin? Toxic how? Hmm. By the way, we take account, you know, it's always good to for people to kind of participate in class, so that when people are perhaps marking TMAs and finals, you can always remember the student and his or her contributions and how active or not active he or she has been. But it's always good to say things, by the way. Okay, the smallest thing can leave the biggest impression on the teacher. But make no mistake about it. Contribute, and don't say that this is little. I don't know much. Just say what you have. Okay, and I'm sure you guys all of you have very beautiful insights. But don't deny us this pleasure, the pleasure of sharing ideas with each other, the pleasure of learning from each other. And make no mistake about it, I yani, truly learn from the classes that I walk into. And I keep, I don't know whether I should be saying that. I say, for example, if we have a class that has, how many people do we have today? If we have a class that has 45, 46 individuals, so we have 45 teachers and one student. And I happen to be this one student. So we are learning from you. Don't deny us the privilege of learning from you, please. Okay? Say whatever comes to your mind. Like I always say, whenever it's literature, and there is obviously nothing wrong or about what you're saying, as long as you're giving examples, you're justifying what you're saying, you're backing up the ideas that you're presenting. with vivid examples. Okay. Right. Anyway, so Reem was saying something. Okay, not Reem, lots of people. So Yasmin, I mean, she overthinks everything and cries over everything, and instead of looking for solutions. Okay, so this is how Yasmin looks at this protagonist. I don't know whether the others are sharing this sentiment. Let's move to Mona. Mona, she suffers in her life. I mean, she under extreme circumstances. Mona is saying that. Yasmin is saying that she could have looked for a job. Okay. I mean, you're trying to say, Yasmin, rather than whining and whimpering, she could have looked for a job, right? Okay. Reem is saying, I mean, although she suffers from severe conditions and believes that she lives in poverty, she wants him. Okay, that's good. Maha is saying, wait, no, she's not toxic. She is a human being with natural desires and dreams. We all are longing to improve our life and dream of better ones, and better lives. Oh, okay, that's interesting. Okay, and we're having a debate here where we have people who support and like Matilda, and we have people who are against her, which is good. That this is vibrant, this is very active, and this is what literature is all about eventually. Okay. Let me read the rest. Maha. Yasmin is obviously talking to Maha. I have my personal opinion, so do you. Yes. احنا نروح الاسم. How about that? Yeah, I like it. I like it when we have divergent viewpoints and people are kind of, are very excited about their opinion. This is what literature is all about, like I'm saying. Okay. So, okay. Mishal is saying she's facing a lot of problems in her life, and Maisa is saying she wants to be rich without doing much um, um, effort. Arish, she lived in a middle class community but wanted to be a member of um, the high society. That's a good way of putting it, Arish. So obviously there is nothing wrong with trying to kind of dream big and having ambitions. But how much did she do in order to kind of um, achieve this kind of ambition, right? So she has dreams, and this is legitimate, but she doesn't have plans as how she can kind of achieve these dreams. This is the gap that we're having, if you ask me. Okay. Okay. All the other characters are in the background. So Matilda happens to be the protagonist, the main character, and everybody else is playing a minor or a support role, right? They all help in perhaps highlighting points about Matilda, right? Okay. So I wouldn't consider her husband a major character. Her husband is a minor character, right? And even her friend, right? Okay. We'll come back to the character of Matilda, perhaps when we talk about the themes of the short story, the ideas that the writer is trying to get across to us. Okay? Right. So let's talk about the plot. Plot means the storyline, the basic storyline. So give me a line that sums up the storyline, or that sums up the plot or the story. Can we have a line or two, a sentence or two that sums up the whole idea? Okay. So again, it's about this middle class. If we agree that she is a this middle class woman who lives in France in the 19th century, and she obviously her husband works in the government. It's a minor job after all. Okay, and it is clear that she doesn't seem to be kind of on board with this kind of life. They will have a party, and kind of she feels that she wouldn't be able to attend unless she has um, you know address and stuff. They have to kind of borrow um, money, not money. She would have to borrow the necklace of one of her friends, and this is where the complications start, right? At one point, she would lose the necklace, and she would have to kind of um, look for ways as how she can buy another one for her friend, and then they will have to suffer in the process because they have to cut down on a lot of things. Their lifestyle is going to change for the worse, of course. This would take 10, was it 5 or 10 years? 10 years, right? And after 10 years, when she meets her friend and she speaks to her about those kinds of sufferings and the fact that she was part of, partly the reason for this suffering, there would be we will have a bombshell. We ourselves as readers couldn't expect this kind of this surprise or shock. The fact that the necklace that they were fighting to gather money for is no more than a fake necklace. Imagine yourself in her situation. I mean, wasting 10 years of your time, of your life, I mean, trying to kind of collect money and um, cut down on a lot of the basics and necessities of life, only to know that you were doing all of that for a fake or a false necklace. So, what do you think of the ending? Were you frustrated and shocked? Did you expect it? Did you expect this kind of twist at the end? It came as a surprise to me when I first read the short story. It was I felt the feelings, I felt the sensations that Matilda may have felt. Yeah, this is perhaps the beauty of the short story, the fact that you feel one with the character to the extent that you start to share her the feelings. Now, whether those feelings are bad, negative, or positive, and they were negative for the most part, right? Especially the last part when she discovered, and this discovery is so overwhelming, right? So frustrating. So I didn't expect it myself, and I think lots of us here in class didn't expect um, what happened at the end. The fact that the necklace that we've been uh, talking about for some time, that we have been seeing Matilda collecting money for, is nothing but a fake or a false necklace. It's a bombshell. This is how I can describe it. The short story comes to an end, right? We don't know whether Matilda would survive the shock or not. She may not. No, Maya, no, it's not about stupidity. I mean, this is very poignant and very pathetic, you know. It happens. I wouldn't describe her as stupid at all. So Mona is saying, I think honestly, honesty is the best solution. If she had told her friend before, she wouldn't have suffered for 10 years of her life. Well, she didn't mean to be dishonest, by the way, Mona. She were trying to make amends. It's as if she was trying to say, um, well, it's my mistake, and I have to pay for that. Um, my the least that I can do for my friend who was so generous with me, and she gave me her necklace. The least that I can do is to kind of give her necklace back. Okay, so it's not about honesty or dishonesty. At least this is how I see it. Masa is saying no, she is not stupid, but she should have been honest. Okay. Haya is saying always it's better to tell the truth and face the results and endure them rather than maintaining self-esteem by fabricating lies. Were there lies that she was fabricating? I think you guys are so harsh and so tough on her. Yasmin is saying that we could have been better off, everyone, including the readers, if she had wore those flower kind of thing, and we wouldn't have had the story. We wouldn't have had the complication, Yasmin, right? I mean, the short story could have ended so early, right? So Maha is saying she was impressed with the clash she thought her friend belonged to a degree that she never thought that the necklace could be fake. Yes. Reem is saying, frankly, her superficial personality didn't appeal to me throughout the story. Yeah, that's you may be blaming her for that. You may be you if you make an honest assessment of her character, you would say that she she didn't live. She was not realistic about what kind of prospects and what kind of life she is having. And again, you would also say there is nothing wrong with dreaming. There is nothing wrong with changing or hoping to change your status. You're poor and you want to be rich. What's wrong with that? Again, perhaps you can take that against her. The idea that she is overly ambitious and she's not working towards fulfilling this ambition or achieving this ambition. You can be ambitious Okay, but if you're ambitious and full stop, and if you're ambitious and other people are paying the bill of this ambition, this is obviously uh, wrong. So you can think of it as why would her husband, for example, pay for the necklace, right? Obviously, it was her fault. Her fault in wanting to impress on everybody that she's perhaps rich and she comes from a high class, right? So she's in a sense to blame for whatever misfortunes befalling her. Okay. Layla is saying after 10 years they spend their life so hard, I mean working hard. They discover the necklace is fake because she's jealous, she has jealousy towards her friends. um, okay, at the end Layla is saying that she loses her life and her house. I mean, she wasted so much time. Haya is saying she wasn't satisfied. Maha is saying this is a common character in our society and the girls are being too idealistic. Maisa is a friend who lent you a diamond necklace must be very close to you, so she can tell her the truth. But after knowing it's fake, they are good friends. Both are not honest. Yasmin, that jealousy wasn't mentioned at all. Wearing her friend's necklace was not an idea. You mean she was her husband's idea, Yasmin? Okay, so again, the fact that we disagree on the character of Matilda means that she is a vibrant character. It is to her credit that she is receiving different assessments and different interpretations. Okay, she's not a flat character like her husband, for example. If I ask you about her husband, you're going to sum him up in a sentence, for example. Yes. So she's a vibrant character, whether we agree or disagree with her behavior. The only thing that we may, or I may, this is my interpretation, the only thing that I can take against her would be uh, that her ambitions and her behavior do not see eye to eye, if you like. I'm trying to say that there is a mismatch between her ambitions and her behavior. If you're ambitious, if you have ambition, you try to fulfill and accomplish it or achieve it, right? You work hard towards achieving it. So achieving ambition is not about looking good in front of other people, and when you look good in front of them, you're not doing that because you have money that you have earned. No, because you're borrowing whatever clothes or whatever jewelry that you have. She could have worked hard so that she can have jewelry of her own, right? And this would be one way of perhaps achieving her ambition. This is what I take against her. I wouldn't talk about whether she's honest or dishonest, whether she should have told her friend about what happened with the necklace, right? No. Okay. So when we talk about plots, we talk about complications and conflicts, right? And we also talk about motivations. Motivations are reasons. I mean, what motivates the character to act in the way he or she does. Okay, and whether those motivations are, kind of, justified or not. You can just have, um, in a short story or in a novel, you don't accept a murder without motivations, for example. You don't just go as a character and kill somebody for no obvious reasons. There has to be motivations. You're trying to steal him, you're jealous of him. There have to be reasons. So, do we have conflicts here? And conflicts can be between characters, and among them can be external conflict when we have perhaps a character um, and who is pitted against nature. You can have conflicts, like I said, between the characters. You can have conflicts of ideas, right? So let's talk about the conflicts that we have, and we'll come back to the idea of motivations. Okay, so what conflict can you see, and what are the conflicts that you may spot? Hmm. Okay, Maha is saying within her own personality, between her dreams and her reality. Yeah, yeah, that's good. Okay. Can't you see this conflict between Matilda and her extreme circumstances? So on the one hand, we have Matilda as yeah, a party or a side to this conflict, and on the other, you have the other side, which is those extreme circumstances that she was under, right? Okay. Again, this major conflict between her dreams and her reality, like Maha is saying, between her dreams and perhaps um, her actuality, the fact that she doesn't um, impress us as an active individual who is working towards achieving her dreams, right? So again, it's dream and reality. Dream dream is full. She's full of demands. She wants to be rich. She wants to belong to the high class, but she's not working towards achieving that. Yes. Okay, good. Okay. So motivations. Do you think that she was motivated in whatever action she took? Remember, a good sign of a good short story would be that there are justifiable motivations for the action of a character. Okay. Okay. So what's left? Two things. Let's talk about the style. When we talk about the style, we talk about the language. Maha is saying when she went to the party away from her poor class and refuses to wear her old jacket between all or among all these rich people. Okay. Okay. So again, we're talking about the style. And when we talk about the style, we talk about the language, we talk about the choice of words, if there is imagery that the writer is using, perhaps he is very poetic in a non-poetic piece of work. Well, yes, remember that this is also translated. Okay, you'll have to keep in mind that this is a translated work, right? Okay, so Yasmin is saying that it's simple and easy to understand. Do you guys agree with what Yasmin is saying? Okay, so if you set this short story against the others, don't you think that it has perhaps more details, more description? Didn't you notice that it has a lot of description, which would link her to what other short story did we have that has a lot of details? She comes close to what it comes close to what short story that we did? Comes close to which of them in terms of details and description? Yes, wouldn't you kind of compare it automatically and subconsciously to that beautiful undiscovered voice by Salwa Bakr? No, no, I wouldn't compare it to Tayyib Saleh's short story. I would, I would compare it to that beautiful undiscovered voice by Salwa Bakr. Salwa Bakr also had details and a lot of description, the character of Sayyida. Okay, if you're going to compare Sayyida to Matilda, what do they have in common? And what is it that they don't have, that they don't share? Remember, Sayyida is also an unfulfilled woman. Remember? Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll come to that, Yama. But let's keep this line of thought that I'm trying to build. Do you think there are affinities between Sayyida in that beautiful undiscovered voice and Matilda in the necklace? Do you think that there are affinities and similarities? Al-Anud is bringing something very interesting to the argument. She's saying that both of them lack confidence or self-confidence. They are not confident enough. Yeah, that's true. Maha is saying no. Okay, if you can elaborate, those who are saying yes and those who are saying no. Would you describe this as lack of confidence or lack of security? Psychological security, the fact that the two characters are not secure. Okay. Okay, it could Mishal is saying that it could be both, right? It can be lack of confidence, self-confidence, and it can also be lack of security, psychological and emotional. Yeah, that's correct. That's interesting. Okay. Um, yeah, Al-Anud is saying that they don't have self-confidence, and perhaps this is why they are not, or no, that's why they don't feel secure. Okay. Again, we're talking about women characters, right? Um, I don't think that Matilda, in Matilda's case, we can talk about, um, you know, injustice done to her and the fact that she was unfairly treated. We don't have that, right? But in Sayyida, it's a totally different story, right? And this is perhaps the difference between Sayyida and Matilda. Matilda does not have that. I mean, the writer does not address this issue of discrimination and prejudice and bias against women. We don't have that. Actually, it's the woman who who is dragging her husband to this difficult and challenging area of having to borrow something, and then they lose it, and then they have to kind of work very hard to kind of buy a new one, right? So we don't have women issues in this short story, right? Do you guys agree that we don't have any women issues, except for the fact that we have a woman as a main character, right? Uh, would would we be too extreme in saying that the writer is biased, for example, that he has some prejudice against women? You may be asking, why would I have a woman as a protagonist, and I say that she has ambition, and this ambition would lead to entanglements and difficult life, not for her alone, but for her and for her husband. Don't you think that, don't you smell some kind of bias perhaps against women in this case? Maha is saying that he is very biased against women. Haya is saying no. Okay. I mean, think about it. It's very debatable. Think about it, and perhaps we can talk about it when you think about it. Okay. Okay, so main themes and main ideas. What is it that Maupassant was trying to communicate to us, or to the reader, or to his reader in the 19th century? Any specific messages that you picked up or out? Um, okay. Yeah, Al-Anud is saying one of the messages would be that people shouldn't try to perhaps imitate and copy other people. And people have different circumstances, right? Are you advocating, yeah, Al-Anud, that if somebody is born poor, he should be happy about it, and that he or she would settle for that, and that would be it? Uh, no, isn't ambition a good thing? Maha is saying, this is interesting. Maha, let me see what. Just give me a second. I don't know where we'll. Wait. Uh, yes, he wants to say, ladies, don't you ever dare to have big dreams. This is his message. Are you sure? Um, Mona is saying that people should be happy with what they have, this self-content kind of thing. Maisa is saying don't look up too much or too high. Okay. Reem sums it up by saying, I think contentment, self-content, and being self-content is a diamond. Mona, if you want something, you should get it by yourself. That's interesting. Abdullah El Sarhani is saying ambition is a good thing, but accepting fate is also important. This is defeatism, you know. If you're a self-defeating individual, you would settle with whatever little you have, which is against ambition. Okay, so you have to choose between. I mean, having ambition is good, provided that you work for achieving this kind of ambition. But if you're having dreams and ambitions and that would be it, that's not the right way. Arij is saying be happy with who you are and what you have. MashaAllah, that's interesting. Thank you, Arij. Yasmin, there is no problem in dreaming. The only problem is that she is whining all the time without working uh, towards achieving those ambitions. That's well said. Al Anud, sometimes things are not do not look um, mm, what they seem. I mean they okay. The reality is different. Al Anud is trying to say. Yeah. Self-satisfaction is the foundation of happiness. Yeah, this is what Faiza is saying. Be smart. Okay. So very interesting messages that you guys picked out of reading the short story. Okay. And again, what is beautiful about works of art would be the idea that they are subject to so many interpretations. They are up for grab, like they say. I mean, you can come up with your own conclusions. The text is open to interpretations. Okay, interesting. Let's talk about the narrative voice. So, what kind of narrative do we have? Do you have first person narrative or third person narrative? Hmm. What do you think? Is it I or he and she? It's third, like Maha is saying, which means that we're having he and she and they and them, right? Okay. So this is good, right? Because we don't have Matilda talking about herself and judging others. We don't have that. We have a narrator who happens to be perhaps a detached observer, okay, um, giving us Matilda's thoughts and ideas, and also the ideas and thoughts of other characters. And this is, like I said, is way better than having first person narrative where you are at the mercy of the first person narrator who gives you his or her impressions, his exclusive impressions and judgments and assessments of other characters. First person narrators do not give you the opportunity to judge characters for yourself. They normally, perhaps in collusion, with the author. They normally direct our assessments of the character, and they gear them towards certain ends, so that you can come up with an assessment that is kind of consistent with what the author has in mind. This is not good, and this is not objective. I think, Doctor, in the final exam we have to mention all these points if the question is about no, the question is not going to be that big. It can focus on, the question can be a close reading of something. Close reading means you may have a text and you can always talk about it. You analyze the text itself, and then you relate it to the rest of the short story, if it's a short story, before and after. Okay, so it's about being consistent, yeah, Maha. It's about being organized in your thoughts. I mean, we obviously we don't have a problem with ideas. MashaAllah, you have overflow of ideas. I mean, you have amazing ideas. I mean, ideas that are better than mine, even, MashaAllah. So it's not about the ideas. It's about organizing the ideas. Okay, it's about writing. If you're writing an essay, you need to be aware of the rules and regulations of writing essays. Okay, and resist the urge to write everything. And this is a problem that we're having, because you have studied everything, you think that you should and you can write everything. No, this is actually counterproductive in the sense that you lose marks, you don't gain marks if you write everything. If I ask you about a specific piece of information and you give me other pieces of information, it means that you're irrelevant, right? If I don't fall into the trap of writing whatever comes to your mind, of writing everything. We'll talk about the final shortly. Okay, time. Let's leave the short stories behind as a genre and move to another genre, which is drama or plays. We spoke about that last time. We spoke about the elements of drama, and today we're going to implement those elements to the play that we have. The play that we have is called Trifles by the American writer Susan Glaspell. Okay. Let me ask you, I don't remember, when is the final exam? It's next week, but on what day, remember? The schedule and the timetable is already out. It's on the 18th. Okay, 18th or 19th? 18th, okay. So 18th means what? Saturday, right? Okay, and then you'll be given 2 days, right? So Saturday you will have the whole of Saturday, and Sunday, right? So Saturday and Sun. When are you supposed to submit the exam? You're supposed to submit it on Sunday or on Monday? I'm asking you. Okay, okay. Within 2 days. Okay. Yeah, 48 hours is big time, right? Okay. Anyway, no, you don't need. You only need 2 hours, yeah, Abdullah. Why would you need 48 hours? In regular exams, you come to the university and you do the exam in 2 hours, maximum 3 hours. You're having 48 hours. Yes, inshallah. Anyway, no, I don't think that. Yeah, but you may have a close reading. I mean, you may have a passage, and you can always, um, I mean, analyze it and then relate it to the rest of the short story, or then the play, or no, you don't need references. Okay. Anyway, let's just focus on trifles, because obviously we don't have much time left. Okay. Muhsin, are you the Muhsin that I taught like 3 years back in Medina? Muhsin? No, you're a different Muhsin. The other one is Muhsin al-Sayyadi, I think. Oh, okay. Okay. So trifle is what we're having. Okay, Muhsin. Welcome. It's a little bit late, I know. We're finishing things off and we're saying welcome, but it's okay. You have always been welcome, yeah, Muhsin. Okay, Trifles, it's a play, and typical of plays, you would have characters, you would have conversations and dialogues, you would have conflicts, you would have setting, of course, you would have ideas. We don't have a narrative voice this time around because you don't have a narrator, right? Do we have narrators? We don't have narrators in plays. And this is obviously one of the big differences between drama and non-drama. Okay. So now that you have read the play, what is the significance of the title, if any? Normally, titles are not put there haphazardly or randomly. They mean something, right? So, trifles is a reference to what or to whom? You know what trifles are? Trifles are trivial things. You know what trivials are? And when something is trivial, it's nothing, right? Okay. Okay. So, when I say trifles, do I mean things that are made, or I talk about empty stuff? When somebody says something that is irrelevant, I say this is trifles, right? So in the play, the reference here is to stuff that was made by one of the characters, or is it about empty talk, for example, empty concerns that I think it's about empty concerns. Okay. Maha is saying it can be both. Okay. So the small things that Mrs. Wright were making, right, in the kitchen, if you look at them, you would consider them. They are small things, and you would consider them trifles. And that would perhaps, in the eyes of some people, would be considered empty concerns. if she is so keen on her jars, the jars where she kind of what does she do with them? She keeps food inside, right? And she keeps them frozen. But this may be an empty concern for some people, right? So the word trifles here can be both uh, physical and also perhaps mental and abstract. Okay. So let's start with the plot. What's happening? What's the storyline? It's not a story. It is meant to be performed on stage, and then it got adapted it got adapted and it became a short story, right? Normally, what is interesting about that? That you normally have a novel or a short story and it gets adapted to the theater or to the cinema. But this time around, we're having a play that gets adapted to the short story genre, right? It's a play and it becomes a short story. Okay? A jury of her peers is the title of the short story, the adapted short story. Okay? Right. Again, now that you have read the play, Maha is saying there is a murder and the victim is the husband and the main suspect is the wife. The prime suspect is the wife. Okay. But this is the storyline, if you like. Okay. This is what the whole play is around. If you have a murder, that would require investigators. They need to come over and decide who the murderer is, right? You have to have witnesses and they have to talk and you have to listen to them and you have to cross-examine them. You have prime suspects, right? And you need to check the motivations and you need to check the background. If you have a prime suspect, you need to check what his or her motivations are, the motives why he or she did what he did, right? Okay. So this would indicate that we are in for a detective play, mystery mystery play, not in the medieval sense of the word. No, we have mystery plays. This was in the Middle Ages in England. No, we're not talking about that. We're talking about a play whose a play that is entirely dependent on a mystery. At the core of the play, there is a mystery, right? And the mystery has to do with the murder of the husband. Again, we wouldn't have a mystery if somebody comes forward and and admits that he or she committed the crime, but we don't have that, right? And whether we don't have that because the prime suspect is hiding the truth or perhaps deranged or deluded in a sense, right? So this is something that we should also consider. Okay. So let's talk about the characters or the setting before the characters. Before the characters, let's talk about the setting. So where are we and when? in the countryside, on a farm. Okay, that's interesting. Mona is saying in an abandoned farmhouse. That's interesting too. Haya is saying the time is the early 20th century during cold weather. The action takes place in the kitchen of a farmhouse in the American Midwest. Yeah, this is what Wikipedia is saying. So, Haya. Okay, thank you, Haya, for taking the time to go to Wikipedia and bring this nice and interesting piece of information. Okay, and then we have, yeah, I'm just kidding. I didn't mean anything offensive. Mona is saying it takes place in an old kitchen. Okay, so this is time and place. That's interesting. Nice. Okay. Remember, whenever we talk about the setting, we need to check whether the setting can be considered a character in its own right or not. So, did you feel that the setting is participating in the action somehow? That the setting has its perhaps negative or positive toll on the characters? And it could be one reason why they did what they did, if they did anything. What do you think? Do you think the setting was, I'm talking about the place aspect of the setting. Do you think it was instrumental in bringing out, or bringing out the conclusions that we had? Do you think that if we were in a different setting, Mrs. Wright wouldn't have killed her husband, for example? Okay. So setting is very important here. Is it only the setting? Is it only the setting? Is it only the time, the place aspect of the setting? Don't you think that the time aspect is also very important? Yeah, Al-Anud is saying that the setting plays a very important role. Okay, whether we're talking about the place or the time. Remember, this is early 20th century, where women were not given all the rights, right? So if we are in perhaps the late 20th century, not the early 20th century, the treatment would have been different, right? Don't you think so? Okay. So as you can see, setting is very important here in terms of time and in terms of place. uh, okay, so let's talk about the characters. And whether we have protagonists, main characters. Maha is saying that we have 5 characters, right? 3 men and 2 women. I think 3 men and 3 women, right? So you have the sheriff and you have the attorney general or something. This is 2, and then you have the Mr. Wright, Mr. John Wright, the guy. I mean, I wouldn't consider him a character because he doesn't appear, right? He doesn't appear that much. wait. So I think we have 4 characters. We never had a chance to hear Mrs. Wright or Mr. Wright. When the play opens, Mr. John Wright is already dead, right? I wouldn't consider him a character. And Mrs. Wright is always spoken about, right? Okay, so we're saying that Mrs. Wright, the did we get to know in the play? Are we left to come up with our own conclusions as whether Mrs. Wright killed her husband or not? Is it stated that she killed him, or we don't know? Know what? What do you mean by know him? I mean, we know, we get to know. Okay, we get to know that she killed her husband, right? I mean, what I'm trying to say is that we didn't leave the play thinking of who or guessing who may be the culprit or the murderer. Okay, we knew through the revelations of the 2 women characters that we have that she killed her husband. And they tried, what makes it even more prominent and clearer perhaps was the fact that they were trying to hide it, to hide the fact that Mrs. Wright, what's her name, Mrs. Wright was the culprit or is guilty, right? Are you sure? Don't we have this conversation, Yamaha, where the 2 ladies are, kind of agreeing on the fact that nobody should know that she is the murderer, that Mrs. Wright is the murderer? I think we knew. Mm. Yeah, this is what I'm saying, Yamaha. We didn't leave the play until we got to know who the murderer is. It wasn't left for us to kind of guess and say perhaps this one or that one. Okay, the action of the 2 ladies made it clear that it was Mrs. Wright, and they even probed into her motivations, why she did what she did, right? No, I'm talking about leaving the play without knowing, and I am saying that we knew about it. Okay. Okay. So again, like I said, you have to have motivations for the characters to be believable, for them to be realistic and relatable. They have to have motivations for their actions. Okay, so we agreed that the wife was responsible for the killing or the death of her husband, right? So does she have, or did she have enough motivations for that? Is the dramatist giving us motivations as why she did what you, because you don't just come or wake up out of the blue and kill your own husband. It doesn't go this way, right? Okay, so the two ladies would probe reasons, would think and explore reasons why she would do that, right? They were trying to establish first who the murderer is, and then after establishing who the murderer is, they started to probe and explore reasons and motivations. And what are these reasons and motivations? I'm asking you, by the way. Okay, so what did they discover? Obviously, we don't only, I mean, traditionally you would have an investigator, who happens to be the sheriff and the this attorney general, right? Or attorney, I mean, what do they call him? Attorney something. Who happens to be the primary investigator, and he has the sheriff, and both of them are investigating. But we have what is interesting is that we have parallel investigators. And who are those parallel investigators? It's Mrs. Hale and the other lady, right? Okay, and two women, right? Two women investigating and coming up with correct conclusions at a time when women were not thought highly of. Very ironic, right? Are you getting the idea? Yeah, Mrs. Peters and Mrs. Hale. They are left behind in the house, and the two men, the attorney and the sheriff, go out in order to look for clues, in order to establish who the murderer is. And they leave them behind because they are women and they are next to nothing and they are not capable of rational thinking, right? Ironically enough, it is Mrs. Peter and Mrs. Hale who come up with the right conclusions as what happened and why what happened, and even how. So it's an irony, and a message by the writer, obviously. Again, the message would be that women are way smarter than we give them credit for, right? Okay, so again, the motivations of the lady, like I said, you don't just wake up and decide that you need to get rid of your husband. There has to be reasons and motivations. Okay, again, through the work of Mrs. Peters and Mrs. Hale, through their logical powers, the fact that they put things together, right? They put the different pieces of the puzzle together and they come up with a solution for the puzzle. Okay, so what are the clues? We get to know that this lady was suffering from domestic abuse. Her husband was abusing her, beating her up, denying her access to the outside world, right? Killing her bird eventually. And obviously the last straw was that he killed her bird, right? Mm. So they decided, now that they have established the fact that Mrs. Wright is the murderer, they decided not to tell anybody. Why? Why do you think they did that? And would you have done that if you had been in their position? Would you have kept a lid on this piece of information if you were in their position? I'm asking you honestly. Um, and let me give you something that may help you decide, giving me a yes or no. When you get to know, for example, that she was abused by her husband, when you get to know that she was a woman who didn't have access to the outside world, she was confined to her home, obviously by her husband. When you got to know that her husband killed the only thing that perhaps connects her to the outside world, the bird. When you get to know that the bird uh, uh, is the only source of happiness in her life. When you get to know all of that, and you get to know that she killed her husband, would you find the act of murder justifiable? And in the end, you decide to keep a lid on it and you don't tell anybody? I'm asking you. Maha is saying she used to be very alive and beautiful with a nice voice. Then her husband, wait. There is a little bit of a lag, so let me just wait. Wait. So she used to be alive and beautiful with a nice voice. Then her husband turns her life into a nightmare. So yes, I would do the same like those women. This is Ma. Haya is saying no, not no, to be honest. Alan would say, to be honest, no. Abdullah would say no. Faiza would say no. Okay. Maisa, no. Capital N. So why not? I'm not going to ask those who says yes. Um, okay, Haya is saying no mercy in killing someone. Yeah. But I mean, other people would say that he used to kill her every day by suppressing her voice, by abusing her. Al-Anud is saying killing is so huge. Mona is saying no, of course I will tell the truth. Okay. Haya is saying that she could have run away. Yes, he was neglecting her, yes. Al-Anud is saying it's not a little secret that I can hide. It's a murder. I mean, Al-Anud is saying that it's a big deal. I mean, killing someone. Yes. Yes. Okay. So you're not sharing these women those feelings, because yeah, perhaps if you were in the early 20th century, you would have felt different. I don't know. I'm just assuming, right? Anyway, they decided to hide it, and obviously they have reasons and motivations. And one big reason would be the fact that they have found out that the victim or the husband used to abuse his wife. Okay, so what kind of what do they call it? Uh, we have two types of justice here, right? You have legal justice, right? Conventional justice, and you have moral justice. What do I mean by them? Justice, I mean, normal justice would be that somebody killed somebody else. He or she has to pay the price. He or she has to go to prison and perhaps be killed himself eventually. This is conventional justice. Moral justice is what the ladies did, Mrs. Peters and Mrs. Hale. What did they do? They kept a lid on the murder. They kept the name of the murderer hidden, Mrs. Wright. Why did they do that? Because they believe that the lady has been the victim of domestic abuse for so long, because they felt that she was killed every day. She doesn't have to kind of be killed in a literal way. Okay. So moral justice is what we're having here, as given by the two by the two women. The fact that they had the evidence that show that Mrs. Wright is the murderer, but they decided to kind of hide this evidence or piece of evidence. Okay. Okay. Uh, let's. So, what are the themes? What are the ideas? What is it that Glaspell is trying to communicate to us eventually, and in the final analysis? She has messages to communicate and deliver. What what do you think these messages are? Okay, freedom. Yeah, freedom or the lack thereof, obviously. Mm. Yeah, women solidarity is a good thing. Maha is saying women solidarity. You know something that sometimes they normally refer to what they call people power. Here we don't have people power, we have women power. Yes, the solidarity that those women showed towards their a member of that species, if you like. Yeah, Reem is saying the idea of gender, and she believes that this is very important. Mona is saying she wants to explain how women were treated at the time. Okay, good. Yeah, freedom. Yes. Yes. The difference between men and women and how different they are in the way they think, and the empathy they have for each other. Yes. Okay. So if we talk about freedom, by the way, you would have the bird representing freedom, because but even I think the bird was caged, was in a cage, right? Which is a representation of or a symbolism of what is happening to Mrs. Wright. Haya is saying small problems, if there are no solutions, they may combine to become major problems like psychological um, and you would develop psychological issues. Yes, yes, yeah. The bird would symbolize freedom, but it was caged. It was in a cage, so it can't be free. Perhaps it can represent and symbolize happiness and joy. Okay, normally it's a canary and they look very beautiful. Perhaps by looking at it, Mrs. Wright used to get inspiration and some happiness in in a desperate situation, or in a gloomy house, a house that does not have any signs of happiness. Okay, and also, birds, they sing, and singing is about, happiness and joy. Again, this is the only source of happiness and joy that she gets. So to have it killed, to have it shot by her husband, was a big deal. And like I said, this may be or may have been the last straw. After, and this is what the two women established, after he killed or shot the bird, she decided to get rid of him. Whether she's doing that consciously or subconsciously, this is also another idea. Okay. I think we'll have to stop and end on this note and with this item. Like I said, I finished almost all the TMAs. There are perhaps 15 left. I'm working on them, and I'll share them on the group tomorrow, inshallah. If you haven't seen your grade, you're likely, inshallah, to see it tomorrow, inshallah, on the group. I'll send it perhaps by 12 or 11 tomorrow, inshallah. Okay, so this is going to be our last class. I would like you to go through everything, all the items that we have covered, and the different short stories and the different poems, and the play. Okay, and if you have any questions or concerns, you may want to communicate with me, whether on the group or on or by sending me messages. If you think, and this is something that you need to decide perhaps by Thursday. If you think that we need perhaps an extra class, we can have one on perhaps Friday. Okay, but agree on that. Put your heads together after you have finished studying and everything. If you think it would be kind of reassuring to have an extra class, we can go for it. Okay.